Chris Ballard, his approval rating here in Indianapolis just continues to plummet. Down, down, down. And the moves that he made yesterday, oh man, they're hard to believe. And as I was sitting back and seeing everything that Chris Ballard was doing, I couldn't help but think about this thing that I just love. I love to play pickup basketball. Love it. There's nothing better than a good session, a good run of pickup hoops. Okay, when it gets cold and it's, too cold to play pickleball on Saturdays, what winds up happening is I've got a group of buddies. We play at the same place every Saturday morning, and it's an absolute blast. Okay, and there's like a set number of us, like 7 guys that are there pretty much every single week. And then we bring other guys, and we rotate these other guys in and out. So from time to time, we'll have new guys show up, which is cool, right? Like, I like playing with new people. It's enjoyable, just hanging out with different guys, figuring out, who to hoop with and all that kind of stuff. It's an absolute blast. And so when these new guys show up that I've never played basketball with, it's a pretty competitive run. And so when you guys show up, you got to ask them, hey, man, like, what are you good at? What are you not good at? Can you shoot? No, you can't shoot. Okay, well, can you defend? Can you handle the basketball? Like, you have to run through all of those questions because, like I said, it's a competitive run and everyone out there wants to win. And so these new guys show up, you grill them on how good they are. And then one of two things happens. Some are honest and know what they're good at, and others have no clue. All right, and the ones who know what they're good at are an absolute pleasure to play with, even if they aren't very good. Like, there will be guys who show up and they go, hey, man, I'll be honest, I haven't played in like 2 years. Okay, so I'm probably not going to shoot the ball very well. And, I haven't played in 2 years, so I can't really handle the ball. But if you get it to me, like, I promise, like, I'm just going to be smart with the ball. Like, even if you're bad, if you know what you're good at, you are a joy to play with. Because if you're open and you can't shoot, you won't shoot it just because you're open. You'll give the ball up. It's great. I really enjoy playing with people like that. Whereas the guys that don't know how good they are, first of all, those people tend to think that they're better than what they are. That's kind of the first thing that that you realize. It's like, oh, you think you're way better than what you actually are. And those people are no fun to play with, and they're no fun to play against. And oftentimes, they ruin the run. They ruin the fun of getting out and playing pickup hoops. And Chris Ballard is the latter. He is ruining this Indianapolis Colts team. Okay, half the battle of anything in life is knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. For me, in radio, if I tried to do what Dan Dockage does from noon to 3, I would not be very good. I have to be myself. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. Slowly figuring that out. And so, I try to lean into my strengths. And this is what general managers should do. And the more I sit back and the more that I study Chris Ballard, the more convinced I become of the idea that he doesn't know what he's good at. He has no idea. So yesterday, roster cuts come through. And what has Chris Ballard preached through his actions and through his words? Chris Ballard wants to rebuild the Indianapolis Colts through the draft. That is abundantly clear. Okay, he doesn't go after guys in free agency. He's like, we're going to draft. And yesterday, the Indianapolis Colts cut 3 of their draft picks from this previous draft. The Colts cut their 7th, 6th, and one of their 5th round picks yesterday. And usually I wouldn't care about day 3 draft picks getting cut. Okay, it's relatively normal. Okay, it's for guys, drafted in the 7th round to not make the initial 53-man roster. Okay, makes sense. I that, totally get that. But every team is different. Every general manager is different. And when Chris Ballard is your manager, or your general manager, and his entire team building strategy revolves around drafting better than everyone else, then I expect for day 3 draft picks to make the roster and to be better than everyone else's other day 3 draft picks. That has to be what Chris Ballard does in order to rebuild this team because he's incredibly tentative and going out and signing new players and trading for new players. If this was the Los Angeles Rams GM, who was hyper aggressive, totally willing to go out in free agency and sign players, totally willing to make big trades and even trade away high draft picks to get other players, then I'd have no issue whatsoever with the 5th, 6th, and 7th round pick getting cut. But because it's Chris Ballard, who preaches the importance of drafting and how that's how he wants to rebuild, that he can't afford to have to cut 3 of his draft picks. Like, how can the Colts expect to rebuild and compete for a Super Bowl? Because that's ultimately what everyone in this Colts organization wants, I think. You know, Chris Ballard does. He's going to be looking like Gandalf at some point if he never gets to cut his hair, right? Like how can the Colts expect to rebuild and compete for a Super Bowl if they don't sign free agents and they don't draft exceptionally well through every single round? Because the way that Chris Ballard is looking to rebuild this roster, you have to draft well in every single round. Okay? And look, if you aren't going to go get free agents, then you have to draft well. And if you aren't going to draft well, then you have to go get free agents. Like, it's really easy when they both coexist, but when you refuse to do one and only do the other, it makes your life incredibly difficult. Okay? Chris Ballard missed so badly on those 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks from this year that they didn't even have a chance in the NFL. They aren't even going to get an opportunity. That's not true. Some other team may come in and pick them up, but they never even had an opportunity to put a Colts uniform on and play week 1 against the Texans. That's how badly he missed. Okay, so he preaches the importance of draft picks and how, that's how we're going to rebuild. And the other thing that bothers me, and I came in early today because I wanted to find the clip. I couldn't find it, but I will never forget before the 2024 NFL draft, Chris Ballard went to the podium and he was asked about drafting and all that stuff and drafting philosophies. And he said that they want as many picks as possible because in theory, the more picks you have, the higher your chances are of getting good players. And that I remember, I'll never forget when he said it because it made me so frustrated because that's simply not true. It's simply not true. The more high draft picks you have, the better your chances are at finding good players. And I sit back and I watch the NFL draft and I see the Colts trade back or make a trade in the offseason. And Chris Ballard's like, hey, we got 2 6th round picks. Maybe we won't cut them this year. Like something has to change for Chris Ballard. Something has to change for this Indianapolis Colts organization to take this step out of mediocrity because they've been peddling in it for the last 5 years. Okay, either Ballard has to be more aggressive in the offseason or he has to be more aggressive in the draft. Look, I don't care that he wants to rebuild through the draft. That's fine. Not an issue at all. But rebuilding through the draft with day 3 picks, drafting guys in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, those aren't the guys that you want to rebuild your roster with. Guys that you draft in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, most of the time, Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed being exceptions to these rules, most of the time, when you take a guy in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round, they aren't very good. That's usually how it goes. There's a reason why they're still available in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. And when we look at Chris Ballard's drafting history, look, day 3, he's not very good, which is fine because most people don't draft very well on day 3. But day 2, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, Chris Ballard's done a good job. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Braden Smith. Those are 3 guys on the Colts roster this year that are going to be starters. They're going to contribute. And so Chris Ballard either needs to be a little more aggressive in free agency, go out, sign a safety, sign a defensive back of some sort, because this Colts team is in desperate need of defensive backs. The back end of the defense last year was bad. And when you compare this year's initial 53-man roster to last year's, the only change in the roster from the start of last year to the start of this year is that Tony Brown is no longer on the roster. That is the only change that Chris Ballard made to the secondary. And that simply is not okay. I've got more on that coming here in a minute. I want to stay on this topic that I'm on of Chris Ballard being more aggressive in the draft. So if you want to trade back and accumulate more picks, that's fine. Just make sure that they're second, third, and fourth round picks, not fifth, sixth, and seventh round picks, because you aren't going to find, most of the time, you aren't going to find good players late in the draft. There's a reason why they're available in the seventh round. It's because nobody wanted them in the previous 200 picks. Okay? If Chris Ballard wants to rebuild through the draft, and that's fine, just do it in the first 3 rounds. Okay, quit trading back to get more sixth round picks. No one cares. 6th round picks usually don't last in the NFL. Oh, well, Tom Brady, exception, not the rule. Okay? Chris Ballard, got to be more aggressive either in the draft or in free agency. There's no other way around it.